If anyone sees this video, it likely means I've been kidnapped, ambushed, tortured, and killed by the government. I wanted to do this video for a long time, but I'm so sick. And otherwise, I couldn't do it. I didn't have the opportunity. I'll try to do what I can. Probably in a few sittings. I spent most of my life, ever since I was about, I think, the beginning of year 2 in primary school, as a very young boy. Almost all of my life I've lived on the central coast of New South Wales, between Sydney and Newcastle, New South Wales, Australia. Sydney is the capital of Australia, and obviously by default, being the most population in the capital, there'd be corruption rampant there. History of corruption there, actually. But as civilization changes, and there's a lot of there's a war between corruption, a losing war. There's many what would you call it, hoops that the corrupt have to jump through in order to get away with and do what they do. It's become difficult, more and more difficult over time, and they've had to adapt to the countermeasures to corruption. But it's always been a losing war, because none of you have any idea what the problem is or how to solve it. This country, Australia, was a penal colony. It's a worst case scenario. The British Empire spent 200 years freeing black slaves. They didn't enslave black people. 2014 was the year that they finished paying off the debt to Jews to free black slaves that were enslaved by Muslims and Jews. The very word slave comes from Muslims enslaving white people, the Slavs. And even though the name isn't derived from it, even more so the red-headed people, my people, the original people of the British Isles. The scum of the scum of the scum, the race traders, etc. They're the ones who did the slaves, who orchestrated, who were the backdoor entry into my home country after it was invaded by outsiders and conquered. I'm of the royal bloodline. If you know who I am, you know what I mean. We were invaded. A lot of wars happened. A lot of shady things done to us, done to me and my people. And a large amount of us found a way to at least live alongside those who weren't evil scumbag pieces of shit of those group. And we fought and died along each other, fighting against those evil pieces of shit. He probably screwed my people over more than their own people, but their own people died in countless numbers too. This filth I'm talking about is the filth that came over to Australia with the slaves. You see, what happened was the concept that we now know as kangaroo court originated in the British Isles under the government at the time. They wanted to colonize the new world as the Spanish, the French, and the British empires. Colonization meaning pretty much just building new colonies on largely, if not completely, unoccupied land. And that's not what people say it is. But Australia was largely unoccupied, contrary to popular belief. It was almost completely unoccupied the whole time. And the British Empire wanted to build new civilizations on the new empty continent, largely empty continent. In order to have manpower to build it, those two groups of slavers, the one in particular, you know who I'm talking about, conspired with traitors among their own kind who they were slavers. When they're around rounding people up, grabbing people because they had red hair or because they were political rivals, etc., or just simply for the fun of it, accusing you of stealing an apple or some stupid crap like that with no evidence, no witnesses, accuse you, grab you, and your life in slavery on the other side of the world under the worst conditions known to man. All the stories about slavery around the world, most of them are completely bullshit. But what you don't hear about is the worst case of slavery was actually of my people in the British Isles, and when they transport to Australia and what happened to them in Australia. The truth, the story, the narratives you've been told are completely upside down to the truth. This filth, this slavers are traitorous filth who sold out to outside slavers, to outside filth. Their filth on the inside were the ones who let the back door open to let the outsiders in to take over and enslave my people and countless more. Not just my people, but other people who came over to the British Isles and have a long history there too. The Anglo-Saxons, a lot of them are innocent and they suffered by the hands of these traders and stuff too. And despite what certain Anglo-Saxons did to my people in the British Isles, I consider them my kin in many ways. We fought and died alongside each other for a long time against this filth. We've both suffered extremely by this filth, this traitorous filth that has held them in a enslaved kind of state, forced to throw their lives away for someone else's profit and entertainment, just like my people have been. But all of us were rounded up. Anyone who resisted, not the British Empire itself, but anyone who resisted the corruption in the British Empire. You see, what people don't know is the British Empire, because it became so wealthy and invented all kinds of technology and built into infrastructure, built most of the modern world. It wasn't a plundering force. They built everything for everyone else. But along with that comes corrupt filth, who tries to weasel itself into positions of government power. Wherever there's money, the filth will congregate like cockroaches. And so they did with the British Empire. And the British Empire tried to purge them. They disbanded the East India Trading Company for this reason, at huge expense to themselves, more than you could possibly imagine. And the idea the idea behind settling in Australia, building a new colony in Australia, was to get rid of that corrupt filth and fuck it off to Australia, get rid of it. And that filth enslaved their own kind and took them with them, and they ran all the ships with the slaver ships, along with the who was the primary orchestrator of it. But it could not have been done without the traders. The traders are the worst. It's one thing to invade and conquer and enslave another people, but it's far worse to be the very traitors among your own kind who let them in through the back door for crumbs of short-lived power. Those traders and the orchestrators went to the New World with these slaves, my ancestors, who 90% of them died along the way. You hear about that 90% died rule? No, that happened with my people. It didn't happen with other people. Not as bad. It happened with my people. That 90% thing comes from my people dying in the worst conditions known to man in these ships. Very few of them made it to Australia. It is a very long way too. Of those who made it, they were forced to build Australia. They're the people who actually built this country, the slaves, my ancestors. One of my great something, great however many numbers, grandfather built the first church in Sydney, the capital of Australia, with his own hands, is what was discovered a long time ago in my family history research that was done, and many other things like that. So My ancestors, the slaves, built this country. And the slavers abused them in ways you couldn't possibly imagine. And many of them died still. Of the survivors, somehow some of them survived. They were eventually freed because they did such a good job and they didn't complain. And there was no justified reason for why they were enslaved. Everyone knew they never stole apples or anything like that. There was no rule of law. It was just race traders' filth. And everyone knew that filth was the threat. And these slaves should be put on a pedestal for what they've done and what they've endured. But they were just freed, and that's all. Those slavers, as that colony grew into a civilization and technology grew, and it became harder to get away with crimes, government crimes. Those slavers had to go underground and reinvent themselves. They now call themselves the New South Wales Police Force. The same culture of corruption and evil, the same filth, the same unwritten secret Bible that they have. They have a secret Bible. It's not a Christian Bible. It's satanic, if anything, but it's not even directly that. It's just a set of rules, unwritten rules that are passed on verbally and through innuendo and experience to show how things work around here and what the consequences are if you don't go along with it. It's a long story in that to explain that. I know how it all works. But the slavers reinvented themselves as the New South Wales Police Force. Sydney being the capital of the country and the major population centre and also the state capital, national and state capital. I mean, Sydney, some people say Canberra, but Sydney is the major population centre. It's the true capital of Australia. And because of, as I said before, the difficulties in getting away with corruption get harder over time, it kind of like that cockroach nest got pushed out of Sydney and it went to the most, the closest nearby area that they could get away with. So there's two cities, Sydney and Newcastle. Newcastle's not as big as Sydney, but it's a big city still. They got pushed in between. For example, all the police officers, government officials, especially doctors who are not good enough for Sydney. No one will have them there because they're shit, they're corrupt, etc. They find a home in the Central Coast, a little bit north. And where cockroaches congregate under conditions where they can thrive and get away with what they do, a nest naturally forms, whether naturally or deliberately, and it's both. The centre of corruption in this country, and which has global consequences too, is on the Central Coast of New South Wales, Australia. Scott Morrison, I've shown things that have been revealed, proven. Everything I've been said has been proven over time. He secretly ran the medical system in all these secret, they call him like secret ministries or something. I call it something else. But same thing. Is corrupt people, they don't have one job. They have their outward job. And then they have their secret jobs on the side, where the stuff that actually, where they do all the shit, they have far more power in those secret jobs. Scott Morrison was one of these people. That's why he took off to New Zealand for a couple of years to get the heat off and reinvent himself. And then whoop-de-doo, he suddenly becomes Prime Minister. He rolled a medical corruption and other corruption in the Central Coast of New South Wales. He was behind a lot of that shit, as many others are, but he was a big part in it, a big key component of this. It's not an accident that he became Prime Minister. The man-made virus in the 90s that I've talked about that I was infected with almost killed me and killed thousands and thousands of people. He was behind that. When it was in the newspapers for a bit, all the whistleblowers who disappeared and tried to whistleblow. Government, pharmaceutical companies, multiple governments, in fact, pharmaceutical companies around the world, universities, Newcastle and Sydney University were involved. The idea was to take this man-made virus and infect a target population in northwest Sydney. It was like 1996, I think it was. Some people were saying it's 1997, but it was 1996. I think the people who said this in 1997, people got it wrong, because this is when it all came out in 1997, because it all happened in late 1996, mid to late. I think it was like about August or September or something like that. Late 2006. But it didn't just happen suddenly. Things happened over a course of about a year. And the vehicle, I think it was a van or something, crashed between Foresters Beach and Batter Bay. I've heard different stories. It crashed into the sign that's saying that these hazardous materials are not allowed here, or it crashed a few meters from the sign, somewhere around that sign anyway. I heard different stories. The virus escaped and went on the loose and killed thousands of people. And I was one of the few survivors, and then I was used in medical experiments, because instead of infecting the target population, it infected us in the local community just near my home. This is one of many stories to give you an example of what I'm going to say. And I was used in countless medical experiments, blacklisted by the government, by the medical system, and that all got big conspiracy. Also, a big scandal was exposed over blacklisting over this thing too, and it got proven true. And nothing was ever. The victims, like me, were never helped in any way. We weren't even acknowledged, and it was all swept under the carpet. You know how this all goes, right? I was using all kinds of horrific medical experiments. They're not really experiments. They're just basically psychopathic filth who like to mutilate people for entertainment. That's it. That's all it is. There's no real information of value to be got out of it. Just causing suffering and mutilation and death for the sake of it, because I hate everything. That's all there is to it. But Scott Morrison was behind that, and just to give an example of the corruption around here, I could go on and on and on. Laurie Marr, the previous mayor of the Central Coast, got done for I think it was 100 and something counts, and it was probably thousands of them were reported. How do I say this without getting this video banned? Let's just say doing things to little boys at a homeless shelter. And only a small number of them were officially acknowledged, but this was like in the thousands of, or something. It was over like a decade or two or something. The mayor of the Central Coast, Laurie Marr. You can look into it. Laurie Marr, M-A-H-E-R, Laurie Marr, L-A-U-R-I-E, Laurie Marr. Another mayor of the Central Coast was Craig Thompson. 120 counts of fraud, prostitution, and the list got so big that the government covered that up too, because so many people get busted along with them, right? So, make them disappear, cover it all up. There's too much shit to cover. Get that under wraps, right? Over and over and over again. Wyong Hospital in the Central Coast. Psychiatric facility. We all know what psychiatric facilities are for, making people disappear, right? The administrator, a convicted mass murderer, killed thousands of people, done every crime imaginable. Officially got done just for killing his wife in cold blood, but there was a lot behind this to get it to that point, and there was global protests over this guy and the Chelmsford scandal. Yeah, I'll get to the Chelmsford scandal. But George Slowinski, the administrator of Wyong Psychiatric Facility, an assassin to make people disappear, to grab people and make disappear, and torture and mutilate them in the worst possible way, to scare people into not talking about what they see the police and shit do, right? George Slowinski is responsible for not all, but a lot of my tortures, my initial tortures, several of them, given kidnappings and tortured by the government. Although I'm so mutilated and half dead and shit, I'm gonna die. It's too late to save my life anyway. So, the administrator of a local hospital, convicted mass murderer. Just an accident and a coincidence, right? There's no, as I say, there are no official complaints against him. He's a changed man, a miracle. You can guess what happens to people who make complaints against him, right? The same thing of anyone who makes complaints against any government official around here on the Central Coast. I can go on and on and on, but I want to give a few examples just to what I'm about to say. What else was I going to say? The Chelmsford scandal. More than 1,000 people kidnapped off the street, children, everything. Horrific things. I mean, it's going to be hard to find information on the internet about the horrors they actually did to these people, because it was that bad. A lot of people died from all kinds of horrific mutilation. They strapped people to hospital. They just grabbed people and strapped them to hospital stretchers for up to 3 months at a time, and hooked their brain up to wires. And 120 volts is what a lot of the countries have for electricity in the wall socket, right? Wall socket, wires, your head. 120 volts. No, that's not good enough. Australia has about 240, 250 volts. That's still not enough. They would use a machine that would charge it up to 400 volts, and they would electrocute that while strapped down in a hospital stretcher for 3 months at a time, for no reason given. You're about 5 kilos overweight. That's good enough. That's good enough reason, right? Electrocuting the head every single day with 400 volts with wires into their head. A lot of them died. Just a lot of the people who woke up died. I'll say woke up because people kept dying and screaming in terror and all kinds of crap, and you can get what torture does to you. They put them into induced comas while they electrocuted themselves in the head every day to shut them up. And the ones who even woke up, a lot of them, upon waking up, immediately killed themselves. All around the Central Coast and border of Central Coast, north of Sydney. Just north of Sydney. I could go on and on and on. So with those examples, I could provide countless more. With those examples in mind, the Central Coast doesn't, because of corruption and bankruptcy and fraud, the worst corruption in every corner it's physically even possible. Can't even get any worse than this. There is no government around here. There's no borders of the region anymore. It's just no man's land. The state and federal governments have taken over, and the last I heard, there won't be a government for at least another 2 years. And then in 2 years, there's going to be a vote to try and install a new government and redefine borders, rename everything, etc. It's no man's land. Keep all these things in mind. I have a recent compilation, if it's still up. The Royal Commission Consequences compilation I've been updating as able. Watch it. And watch it while keeping in mind everything I just said. It's the 30th of November. It's late and it's at night time. 30th of October, 30th of the 10th, 2022. In a couple of days, on the 2nd of November, I have to go to Wyong Court, to a specific room I've been in before, to answer the accusation I'm going to be evicted, kidnapped, tortured, imprisoned for life, etc. I've done the worst crime imaginable. And what they're accusing me of is apparently I didn't even happen, it's all on camera, but they send thugs to try and harass me and provoke me to conjure any kind of ammo or twist anything they can use against me. And I've done the worst crime imaginable by allegedly, with no evidence and no witnesses, in this Central Coast region. Corruption is, as bad as can be. Apparently, I have accidentally brushed my little finger gently across someone's jacket sleeve, and I'm being charged with common assault And, you know, I'm going to spend the rest of my life in prison being tortured, mutilated. I'm going to be evicted from my home. I'm going to lose all my property, everything. Or they're going to fine me. They're threatening me with a starting $11,000 fine as well on top of every angle. I've been kidnapped, tortured, mutilated. I'm bedridden, about to die because I'm blocked from the medical system. I can't get medical treatment for the injuries they've progressively done to me from the kidnappings and tortures over 10 years. I'm barely able to be awake. You probably hear my voice as I lost my voice earlier today. I can't defend myself in these ridiculous never-ending courts. I've got multiple court cases going on all at the same time, and they're preventing me from turning up to court. I could go on and on and on, but they're going to take me out. You'll never hear from me again without a series of miracles. See what happens, but I need not one, but a series of ridiculous miracles to survive the next few days. And the first of which is on November 2, where I have 50 police cars at midnight surrounding my home, but they don't contact me. They make a lot of noise. They let me and everyone in the neighborhood know that they're there again, like every day. And they bang on all my neighbors' doors to talk to them at midnight, just to let them know that they're searching for me. Wink, wink. With a predefined context of another psychiatric kidnapping. For where maybe I'm making my footsteps are too loud, or I said hello the wrong way, or psychiatric prison for the rest of my life because ridiculous, nonsensical, made up reasons. This same court, they have every intention to kidnap me outside the court. Doesn't matter if they win or lose this ridiculous case. That's not the point. And they did previously win this case, and I got it nullified in retrial because they did a court case without me even being there. No witnesses, no evidence. I wasn't even there to defend myself. I wasn't even notified that I was convicted either. I don't know who the judge was. Don't know who my accusers are. And in a secret mystery court, convicted of assault. So the retrial is on November 2, a couple of days. I've got no chance of any rule of law here. Of course I don't. But this, just to give an example of these kidnapping, the idea is to get me away from my home, away from my live stream, so they can raid my home while I'm away, and take all my stuff and kidnap me outside the courtroom door, just like they did before, and then evict me. I'll tell you how they do this. Is they do this systematically every time. They make up a ridiculous story. Doesn't need to be believable. Just some stupid shit excuse to get you into a courtroom. Force you into a courtroom. You turn up. You say, what the hell's going on? This is ridiculous. There's no court case against me. It doesn't matter if you win, lose, or adjourned or whatever. Either way, you walk outside the courtroom door, and there's a crowd of police waiting for you. They grab you in the name of a mystery mental illness. They might make up some ridiculous story so that bystanders think that there's something legitimate going on when there's not. Just an excuse to grab you. So they grab you violently. They take you to the Wyong psychiatric facility run by a convicted mass murderer, Jordan Slewinski. And as soon as you get there, they abandon their reason that they kidnapped you in the first place. Their story, they've abandoned the story. Well, there you are in a psychiatric facility in limbo. Okay, let me out. They admitted the reason they took me was wrong. It's all bullshit, so let me out. We can't do that. Why? We can't tell you. We need to evaluate you for 2 weeks. Why? Can't tell you that. And then they force drug you for reasons unspecified, with brain damage chemicals that cause you to foam at the mouth, screaming terror, pain, begging to die. While they tie you up face down in the previous victim's piss in a torture room, while you're paralyzed, breathing piss and drowning in someone else's piss, etc., etc., etc. And while you're locked up for reasons unspecified, in limbo, and tortured, they evict you from your home. The idea is to get you away from your camera so they can kidnap you off camera, put you in a psychiatric facility. They don't need to specify a reason. And while you're locked up, they evict you from your home and they make up a story and they do a court case without you. Oh, you were locked up. You couldn't turn up to your court case. Whoops. So they do the court case, make up a story in a kangaroo court, you get evicted, don't even get a chance to defend yourself, don't even get to know what you're even getting accused of, right? They evict you from your home while you're unable to defend yourself in a kangaroo court. And then they come to you while you're locked up in a psychiatric facility to let you know you've been evicted. And if you're in a psychiatric facility and you've been evicted from your home, you're technically homeless. Well, they can keep you. They have a technicality they pull. They can keep you there forever until you get a home. Well, if they evicted you from your home in the first place, do you think they're going to let you get another home? Whoops, you're there forever till the day you die. They did it before. They've threatened to do it countless times. Gone on camera, them threatening to do this. And they're in the act of doing this right now. So on November 2, when I turn up, this is their intent. Unless someone scared them off, which I doubt it, this is what they're going to do. They're going to be waiting out the front to grab me. And they're probably going to convict me like they did before for ridiculous, no witnesses, no evidence. Go look at my Facebook, look at my YouTube video, look at the recordings, the Royal Commission compilation, the photos, the video footage, everything. It's just totally ridiculous. There's no real validity here whatsoever. Remember, this is the center of corruption, right? The epicenter. If courts, corruption doesn't happen if it isn't because of the courts. Courts are foundational. Kangaroo courts are foundational to corruption, to systemic government corruption, and most government corruption outside of systemic government corruption. Wyong Court, Wyong and Gosford courts, two Wyong and Gosford courts are the two courts in the Central Coast. Wyong being far west than Gosford. It's the epicenter. So this very building is the epicenter of corruption in this country. It's the very reason why there's a National Anti-Corruption Commission with the government, the federal government's desperate to restore public faith in the government because they're scared that it's on the edge of them getting lynched, all of them, or getting lynched because of what's going on here with me and other cases like this, but especially me in my case. But I don't exist. I don't exist, remember. I don't exist. This never happened. The government is scared because my evidence has been distributed around the world, and if anyone can back up any more of it, it makes a big difference if you can. All I need is just one copy to survive and go viral. That's all I need. Just one copy. In 2016, November 30, that was a day where I went to court over another ridiculous, one of these assault charges crap, where I never got to, they wouldn't even let me plead not guilty. I never even got to make a plea. I went into the courtroom, walked out the courtroom. When I walked out, the police waiting to grab me, do what I said before. Exact same room, exact same building, exact same epicenter of national corruption, which has global consequences. If there's one room in a building that is the epicenter of corruption in this country, it is around the corner from me at Wyong Court, room 1. I think it's room 1. Same place I got kidnapped and tortured from before. To the point where the government wants to make it blatantly clear that this is their intent. Trying to make me not turn up so they can justify framing me with no evidence, no witnesses in a kangaroo court, and convict me for things that never happened. And at the same time, justifying breaking my door down and grabbing me, even if my live stream cameras are on. Which they probably won't be if that was to happen anyway, because they've already dug up my phone lines, broken up in the power box, everything, to let me know that they're going to cut my power and internet like they used to do in the past. And there's a lot more to that as well. I'm screwed from every angle. I'm too sick and disabled to be physically disabled, to be up from vomiting and nausea, fatigue, etc., to be able to defend myself in a rigged court against endless barrages of court cases and accusations with no evidence, no witnesses. In all this time, not once has any court ever looked at any evidence I've provided, not once. It's always their word against mine, and their word is all they need to look at. Right, kangaroo courts, right? They say, oh, I did blah, blah, blah. Okay, I'll take your word for it. Convicted. And I'll say, hang on a sec. I have a video recording of the same whole thing I can play right now, proving black and white, crystal clear. I never did that. They did that, not me. Shut up, or we'll rule you in contempt of court or whatever, or just ignore me, pretend I'm not there. Usually just pretend I'm not even there. Lie, 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 lie. Every step of the way. So much I could say, but I'm too sick to say it. Just watch the Royal Commission compilation video if you can find an updated version, as updated as can be. And also find a copy of my life story. You may be able to do so on my website if it's still up. If you see this, I'll go get my website right now. Close all this. I'll see if I can there's my website, terranonymous.com. It's HTTP, not HTTPS. I'm not going to explain why. There's an important reason why. So if you get a warning box, no SSL certificate, it's because your device or you have inserted an S in HTTPS. It does not provide security whatsoever. It's actually vulnerability. Long story to that. But Terran Anonymous with the AN, where they are, both words merge in AN. terranonymous.com. Look at this in HD and you'll be able to see it to be clear. And you can see his evidence, 2014. There's transcripts of, or click transcripts, you'll see these are transcripts of the break-in. They're break-ins and confessions and all this shit, right? Of recent transcripts of certain things going on right now, with what was done to me and the lies, all kinds of shit. I got other transcripts of all kinds of recordings, all kinds of shit all over the place. But that is what I want people to, if you want to know the situation and how I've been framed and assassinated and everything, that's what you need to look at. In addition to that, let's go to this too, by the way. We'll go this. The story, I'm gonna go watch on video. Click watch on video there. Don't read it in text, that's for emergencies. Click watch on video here, and then it'll take you to my video, my story, a playlist chapter by chapter of my story, and addendum videos. There's a lot more that came from thousands of hours of videos backing up what I say in it. There's piles of evidence that you'll probably never get a chance to see. It's probably too late for that. Please watch my story. Please watch the Royal Commission Consequences evidence video to understand my situation and who I was and what I did. And I can prove everything if given a chance. Unfortunately, I don't get a chance. I don't get human rights. I'm too sick to defend myself, and I'm surrounded by the government criminals in every angle, screwed from every possible angle, totally surrounded. And without a series of miracles, starting November 2, before November 2, I can survive physically, because I'm so sick to even to make it that far, to even make it to the court. If I do that, even, I need a long series of miracles to survive each day from then on. So, if miraculously I don't get kidnapped on November 2, I will surely get evicted from my home a couple of days later, and probably charged with crimes I never did and all kinds of crap too. And if I survive kidnapping, torture, or if I escape kidnapping and torture somehow, and if I get evicted and I become homeless and I'm wandering around homeless, I'm going to die vomiting in the gutter very quickly. I have a plan. It's a long shot. A place I don't think anyone would find me. Maybe. We'll see. Where I will die there. A place I can just and wait to die in a tent. In the middle of nowhere. Far away from everywhere. Far away from civilization. far away. There's a place a long time ago that I'd been to a number of times. A very important place. I don't know if it's still there. And it's very hard to get to. I'm very sick. I have to crawl there if I can even get there. And travel a very long way to get there. But if it's still there, that's where I'll die. And if I'm lucky, I may have solar power fed internet connection on a device in my final moments and days. There's a lot of things I wanted to say to a lot of people. I'm too sick. I'm too sick to do it. This world hates me. Everyone hates me with a passion, psychotic passion. No one can ever say why, never ask why. They just turn into a neurotic, violent animal. They're just asking why they hate me so much. And I get accused of random things in every corner, everywhere I go. But I was the only one who was ever on their side to begin with. I tried to help this world and it only spat in my face and tried to kill me. Not tried, but is about to succeed. And the truth will never be known about me, who I really was, what I really did, what I really stood for. The very people I was trying to help were the very people who killed me. I'm so sick, I'm about to throw up and pass out. If I'm able to add anything to this, if I'm well enough in the short time I have left, I'll try to add onto this and upload it and schedule it. I'm too sick. I'm about to pass out. I have to stop the video.